war. War never changes. Hey everyone, and welcome to my review for Season 2, Episode 1 of Fallout on Amazon, titled The Innovator. Like always with my reviews, I'll be going over what I thought were the positives, negatives, my top 5 moments, the best kill, best line, and a final score, all the while exploring the many additions and changes to established lore. So overall, I have to say I really enjoyed the start to Season 2. It wasn't perfect, as there was one scene in particular I didn't much enjoy, but aside from that, I loved returning to this world and catching up with all these interesting characters. I felt like they really did a great job setting up the season by leaving us with so many mysteries and unanswered questions. I can't wait to see more. As I'll discuss later, I wasn't the biggest fan of the opening scene to the episode featuring Robert House at the bar, but there were definitely some parts I liked, since I was both confused and fascinated to see there were two actors playing Robert House at the same time. I think like most people, I assumed they were replacing Rafi Silver from Season 1 with Justin Theroux for Season 2. But then they showed us new footage of Rafi Silver's Mr. House doing a TV interview while Justin Theroux's house watched in the bar, and I realized something more was going on. My immediate thoughts were that Rafi Silver's house may be a body double used for public appearances, as this character is loosely based on Howard Hughes, an eccentric billionaire known to use body doubles. But after the episode, I looked online to see what other people were thinking, and Oxhorn, one of my favorite Fallout YouTubers, said he thought the man in the bar might be Anthony House, Robert House's older half-brother, which would explain his references to the H&H Tool Company which he inherited from their father. I'm not sure I believe that, since in the games, Anthony House started losing his mind and became a super paranoid recluse, so I don't think he would be capable of everything we see him doing this episode and in previews for the rest of the season, but it is a very interesting possibility to think about. Moving on, I loved seeing the Great Khans make an appearance, and found it hilarious Lucy tried to use her charisma for a speech check and failed miserably, leaving the ghoul to clean up her mess. It was also great to see the car blow up so easily when Lucy shot it, just like in the games. I was a little confused to see Lucy acting so innocent and naive after all the development she had in Season 1, but it made more sense later on when she explained she's choosing to act morally and lead by example so others might realize their conduct matters. Of course, that's a pretty ridiculous way to behave in the wasteland, but at least it explains her behavior. Some other moments I enjoyed were seeing the ghoul heal himself with radiation, seeing Vault 33 try to deal with the water chip issue, which is a great reference to the plot of Fallout 1, watching Norm release all the junior executives from cryosleep, listening to Hank's creepy message for Lucy in Vault 24, where I'm pretty sure he used the Fleece Soup Lady's son to tell Lucy to go home, and seeing Hank find the abandoned Vault Tech office where he cleaned himself up, wore a suit, and put on that golden Pip-Boy. Also, like always with this show, the music was fantastic, bringing me right back to my memories of walking through the wasteland listening to the radio on my Pip-Boy. Now, for the most part, I love this episode, but there was one scene in particular I didn't like, and unfortunately that was the opening scene with Robert House. As I mentioned before, there were parts of the scene I did enjoy, but once House stepped outside with those 3 disgruntled workers, that's when it fell apart for me. From my playthroughs of New Vegas, I always thought of Robert House as the smartest guy in the room. A suave, cunning, forward-thinking man who carefully calculated every move he made. But what I saw in this scene was the opposite of all that. I saw a wild, reckless, sloppy psychopath performing a needlessly gruesome experiment on a random innocent person. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that a wealthy, ambitious, and hyper-focused genius like House is capable of pretty much anything if he thinks it's necessary to further his goals. But I find it hard to believe a man with so many resources can't find a more subtle and private way to conduct his research, rather than going out in public in the middle of the day to murder 3 random people in an easily accessible alley where anyone could be watching. It just seemed so amateurish I couldn't help but lose respect for the man I thought he was. Now, if it ends up being that this is actually Anthony House, or they give us some better explanation for why he acted this way, then maybe I'll change how I feel about this scene. But for now, I felt this was the low point of the episode, and since it was the first thing I saw, it honestly made me worry for what else was coming. But luckily, things only got better from there, which brings me to my top 5 moments of the night. Starting with Cooper Howard driving to Bakersfield with his daughter Janie, which had them pass through an idyllic 50s style neighborhood that served as a wonderful reference to Sanctuary from Fallout 4. Although this was obviously a different location, seeing all the happy people in their sanctuary-style houses and the Vault-Tec salesman going about his duties really brought me back to that opening scene in Fallout 4 and made me think what this neighborhood would look like after the bombs dropped. Another thing I enjoyed about this was the mention of Bakersfield, which may give us a clue about how Cooper Howard turned into a ghoul, as Bakersfield was the location of Vault 12, where the experiment called for the vault door to remain unsealed, allowing radiation inside, which eventually turned the population into ghouls who later went on to found the city of Necropolis. So it's entirely possible Cooper Howard sought shelter in Vault 12 and that's how he became a ghoul. For the number 4 spot, I chose Cooper Howard's meeting with Miss Williams, where she explained his wife would soon travel to Las Vegas to sell Cold Fusion, and without outright saying it, asked him to assassinate Robert House. This scene stood out to me because of the confusion surrounding House's motives. I found it very interesting that Miss Williams, and through her influence, Cooper Howard, seemed to think House would be responsible for launching the nukes that end the world, when in reality, as we learned in the New Vegas game, House built a missile defense system to protect Las Vegas from the nuclear war he believed was inevitable. Not only did House not start the Great War, but his predictive mathematical model got the timing wrong, with the war starting 20 hours before the scheduled delivery of a platinum chip to upgrade his defense grid. From his conversation with Lucy, it seems that 200 years later, the ghoul still believes House was responsible for dropping the bombs, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they interact in the next few episodes. For the third best moment of the night, I went with Lucy and the ghoul's exploration of Vault 24. One of my favorite parts of the games is exploring new vaults and learning their history and the experiments they conducted. So I love this addition to the lore, learning that Vault 24 was a mind control experiment where they turned regular American citizens into communists. Given that they were using the same device Robert House had at the beginning of the episode, it raises questions as to how involved he was with Vault-Tec, and whether this was one of the vaults given to him in exchange for his investment as discussed during the corporate meeting in Season 1. I'd also be curious to learn how the population of this vault died, as many of the residents seemed to be going about their business when the end came, and we don't learn any details about what ultimately happened. At the number 2 spot, I went with the scene that almost made it to number 1 because of how fun it was, and that's the first Lucy and Ghoul fight scene against the Great Khans when the iconic Big Iron song started to play. Not only was this a great and hilariously gory fight scene, but hearing Big Iron as the ghoul massacred the Great Khans really elevated the whole thing to another level. As I mentioned before, I wasn't a big fan of the opening scene, so getting this right after really made up for it and dispelled my worries for the episode. Big Iron has to be one of my favorite songs from all the games, so I got embarrassingly excited when the song started playing, and this immediately became one of my favorite scenes in the entire show. Now, for the best moment of the episode, I went with Hank McClane sending a mysterious message at the abandoned Vault-Tec office. This was fascinating for a number of reasons. First, we learned that Hank was apparently working for someone else while an employee of Vault-Tec, possibly as a spy. Next, we learned that the employer was someone who wanted to perfect the mind control devices, spent time around Las Vegas, and made calculations to ensure his own survival, all of which give the impression he's talking to Robert House. But for me personally, this doesn't ring true. For me, it makes much more sense that he would be talking to a representative from the Enclave, since we know from the games that the Enclave was overseeing the Vault-Tec project and using it for their own purposes. To me, it makes much more sense that the Enclave would have their own spies working in Vault-Tec and reporting back. And since Hank implies but never actually mentions Robert House, I'm hoping they're going to swerve the audience by going in another direction. Moving on to the best kill of the night, I went with the cool slow-mo shot during the Big Iron fight scene when the ghoul blew up the head of a Great Khan. And for the best line of the night, I went with Robert House in the opening scene. Even though I wasn't a big fan of how the scene ended, I very much enjoyed his line that every dollar spent is a vote cast. So like I said earlier, overall I really enjoyed this episode and felt it was a great return to this amazing world. They've done such a great job with the set designs, costumes, and props that it really feels like a true representation of the Fallout wasteland and really brings back memories from the games. So I'm gonna go with a strong score of 9 out of 10, as it very much left me hopeful for great things to come throughout the season. So that's it for my review of Fallout Season 2 Episode 1, The Innovator. But what did you all think? Are you enjoying all the game references and Easter eggs? What did you think of the new lore additions? Who do you think Hank was talking to at the end? And what do you think about the portrayal of Robert House and the theories behind him being played by two different actors? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're interested, be sure to check out my Season 1 recap, or my prelude to Season 2, which includes a brief recap of Season 1. I'll link both videos in the comments below. I'll also be releasing a number of new Fallout lore videos in the coming weeks, along with weekly reviews for the show. But for now, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Kurgan the Immortal, Tamika the Black Wolf, Faith the Wandering Huntress, and Torque Frostbite. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.